In a nutshell, the Civil War really was about slavery, but it was also about all of these other political and economic and social issues that had been building for some time, really since the nation um, began after the Civil War. And a lot of this had to do with the amount of slave versus non-slave states that existed in the US, in the Union after the American Revolution, right? As the northern states abolished slavery and the southern states clung to it, tighter than ever, there was this delicate balance that hung in Congress between in the House and in the Senate. And to deal with territories that were being, that were applying for statehood and being added to the Union, Congress decided to enact a Missouri Compromise in 1820 that essentially said that, with this 3630 parallel line, anything above it, any states that applied for statehood above it would be free, meaning closed to slavery, and anything below it would be open, and slavery would be allowed in the states below this parallel line. And this worked for some time, but after the Mexican-American War brought in new territory, the issue of what was going to happen to California, right? Would California be split into two because the line would have essentially divided this very large state? And what gets decided in this 1850 compromise is that California would be admitted as a free state, but any states applying for statehood after would be decided. Slavery, the issue of slavery would be decided by popular sovereignty, right? Letting the people put it to a vote as to whether they would allow slavery in their state or not. And one of the compromises for the South was that the fugitive slave law that was already a part of the US Constitution would actually start to be enforced, and it would be strengthened. And what this meant is that any slave that ran away to a free state, a free territory, could be captured and brought back to its slave owner as part of the slave owner's property. And this really is a changing point in the trajectory towards war, because for the first time, a lot of Northerners who have no firsthand experience with the South or slavery itself are having to use their militia, their tax money, their police force to enforce an institution, slavery, that they don't even agree with or don't condone. And it brought slavery, it brought that to the Northerners' attention in a new way that really they hadn't really grappled with yet. We also see, in the 1850s, a lot of slave narratives being published. Harriet Beecher Stowe, who's pictured here in the slide, publishes Uncle Tom's Cabin in 1854, and it becomes a bestseller in the North. Pretty much everybody reads it, like it's the Da Vinci Code or something of its time. And this, again, also really fuels momentum for this anti-slavery cause that just really increases through a series of many different events over the 1850s. And what we see is the new Republican Party emerges as the party of the North, right? It is the free soil party, meaning they did not want to see slavery expand. They wanted capitalism to really be spread throughout the Union, meaning they wanted workers to earn wages for their labor. And they also wanted to see slavery abolished. So with this new party, Lincoln is elected in 1860, and South Carolina immediately secedes and leads the rest of the southern states to secede as well and form, the Confederacy, which launches the Civil War. During the war, really, women's involvement parallels in so many ways the experiences women had during the American Revolution, right? They're holding down the farm, they're holding down the house, they're looking over, any family business while their husbands or fathers or brothers are away fighting, and they're selling war bonds. They're working on the front lines as nurses and things like that in any capacity, whether they were supportive of the Union or the Confederacy side. This war touched women's lives very deeply, and they come out of it much more empowered. Again, similarly to the American Revolution than before. Um, we see women using their voluntary society skills or their organizing skills, especially in the North. For instance, many Northern white women petition um, President Lincoln to enact a constitutional amendment abolishing slavery. And 3/4 of the petitions that Lincoln even got were from women. And he eventually passes the 13th Amendment, which abolishes slavery. So we can see how their organizing skills are paying off, and they're seeing change through their actions, which is very empowering as well. So in conclusion, womanhood really was redefined in the antebellum period. On the one hand, we have the rise of the ideology of true womanhood, that women are more maternal, that they are the authority of domesticity, that they are more moral. But we also see how women are using that to their advantage to push themselves further into the public sphere, and saying that these quote unquote public institutions like charitable work, schools, middle class, reform, moral reform, social reform efforts need a more maternal perspective, and women are going to be that one to provide that. So this is what we're going to see really expand upon in the late 19th century, the Reconstruction era after the Civil War.